listening to Binder. I'm your host, Ray McManus. Welcome, everybody, to our next episode here of Binder. We're in studio with Drew Barron, where we're going to be talking tea, spilling tea, reading tea, eating tea. I don't know, but whatever you can safely do with tea.
It's a safe bet that Ray has never had tea before in his life.
I've had some tea. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm an avid tea drinker, Ray.
Really?
Yeah. Like every day.
Huh.
Sometimes multiple times a day. I drink coffee too, but like I drink tea pretty much every night. Kristen got me into it.
Okay.
I wasn't really like a bedtime tea drinker before that, but now that I've been doing it for a few years, I can't sleep without my little bedtime tea. Like,
so you
I
have
love
a little
it.
bit. You have a little sleepy bedtime tea?
I do, and we have a little chocolate and a bedtime tea, and that's how we end our day.
Hey man, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that's great. I mean, so when you do this, I mean, you're talking about like full on in a teapot.
No, I mean, usually we'll just do the tea bag, even though I heard that it's full of microplastics now. So like we probably should switch to the teapot, but it's so easy. The tea bag is so easy.
It is pretty easy, man. Heat up the water and just pour it right in and fix how you want it.
Yeah, dude. And we're talking end of the day. I'm lazy. Come on.
Well, yeah, end of the day. I mean, and the whole idea is at the end of the day, tea is supposed to be relaxing. So I know I'm impatient. So I just like, come on, is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? And I know with the microwave, it takes 2 minutes to heat up water, or on a kettle on the stove takes about that same amount of time, depending. So,
we got the electric kettle, so
electric kettles are good. Yeah, those are good.
In the 21st century over at my house. But you know, I mean, I think this all brings up like a really good point, though. It's just like, you know, tea, I think, as opposed to maybe other food and beverages, I guess, you could kind of, there's a little bit more ritual behind it. Like people have a time and setting that they prefer to drink tea. Mm-hmm.
It's healthier. I mean, in many ways. I mean, like, you know, because I might give up my evening Twinkie and a Coke for a tea and a chocolate. Maybe.
Yeah. It's dawning on me.
I don't do Twinkie and a Coke.
Yeah. It's definitely staying in.
Terrible.
All of this is staying in. You know, it kind of dawned on me just now, Ray, that we should probably explain to our audience why we keep talking about tea, because we have just jumped into it.
Well, I mean, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
You know, just so excited about this episode.
I get it. Well, like, you know, the reason we're talking about it is that we actually have a couple of interesting tea-related stories, believe it or not, that we have brought to y'all today to listen to. Ray's got some very cool guests coming up. Mm-hmm. But you know, first I wanted to kind of gauge his knowledge on the subject a little bit. And this is going to be a twofer, because not only is this going to be a quiz on your knowledge of tea, but this is going to be a quiz on your knowledge of the CMA Collection.
Oh my God, man. I don't know anything about either one of those things.
Well, you're about to prove it to our whole audience.
This is going to be a terrible game.
Welcome to Tea or Title, the game where I name something and it's either tea or the title of a work on view in the CMA Collection right now. So I have a lot of these, so we're going to try to rapid fire this as much as we can, Ray. And so all I need you to say is if it's tea or if it's a title.
Got it.
Got it?
Got it.
All right, cool. So number 1, Dragonwell.
Title.
Oh, sorry, it's a tea. It's,
Teetle.
It's a well-known Chinese green tea with a sweet chestnut-like flavor. All right, so not a strong start, but we got plenty more.
We can cut that part out.
Yeah. I'll think about it. All right, number 2, Sunbath.
Title.
That's right. That is a title. It is a painting by Richard E. Miller, an American impressionist.
That's right.
Good job. So 1-1 right now. Number 3, Lift.
T.
Sorry, that is also a title. It's a painting created by contemporary artist Barbara Takanaka, and you can see it in Gallery 20 upstairs. Enchanted Evening.
Title.
I'm sorry, that's a T.
That is a title too. I know it is.
It is, but it's only CMA Collection pieces on view. So this is a tea by the Mad Hat Tea Company. It's a blend of chamomile, hibiscus, peppermint, spearmint, cinnamon bark, orange peel, rosebuds, and petals. So it's a busy one, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for the next one?
I hate losing.
You got plenty of time that you could potentially win.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah. A rainy day.
I'm going to say title.
You're right. It is. It's by Hans Burkhardt, who's an abstract expressionist. It is an abstract painting, but it has kind of a melty look that kind of mimics rain, right? I think that's where the title's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've definitely seen this painting. All right, so good job. You got that one. You ready for the next one?
Sure.
Red Zinger.
It's got to be T.
It's definitely a T.
Right.
It's by our good friend Celestial Seasoning, everybody grandma's favorite tea.
Celestial Seasonings.
According to their product description, the zing comes from a blend of tart and tangy Chinese hibiscus and fruity Thai hibiscus.
Okay. All right. So I'm at 500 now.
Yeah, something like that. Don't worry, I'm keeping count. Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Lover's Lane.
Title.
Sorry, it's a tea. It's
That's a stupid name for a tea.
It's bergamot and lavender tea, and it's from the Anne of Green Gables tea brand.
Okay.
All right. Got a couple more here. You still have a chance to break even. Let's put it that way at this point.
Hey, that's the story of my life.
At this point, if you get all of these right, you're going to break even. So, all right. So the next one is Spring Instance.
T.
I'm sorry. And I'll be honest, I kind of cheated because the actual...
kind of cheated on a lot of these.
because the actual title is Spring Instance 2, but I thought if I put the 2 in there, it was going to be a giveaway. So I feel like I got to give you half a point for that. But it's a painting by Lee Hall, who's a renowned abstract landscape painter and was also the former president of the Rhode Island School of Design, RISD. We got 2 more. We're almost done. All right, so...
This is uncomfortable.
Night of the Iguana.
Oh, God. I want that to be a tea, honestly.
You're in luck because it is a tea.
Cool, because that would be awesome to drink.
Chocolate chai, and it is from the English tea store.
Sounds delicious.
We have different tastes.
Who wouldn't want to drink that? Who wouldn't want to drink an iguana?
I thought for sure you would get that one wrong. I'm like, my gauge of how you're going to do in these games is really bad.
I'm starting to pick up on what you're putting down now. I think.
Yeah.
Figured out the algorithm. But now I've screwed it up now.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, we got one more.
All right. This is all for the marbles.
All right. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Moonlight.
That's the title.
It's both.
Yeah.
It is both a title of a painting by Ralph Albert Blakelock, but it is also the name of a white tea from Yunnan, China. So it's a little bit of both there.
Okay, so
you know what? We don't need to do the math. I'd say you won.
I think I broke even. At least.
You know
the
what?
half a point got me there.
Listeners at home can fact check us on that. But I think we've had some fun. So now it's time to get to business and bring in somebody who actually knows something about tea, because neither of us clearly do.
Yeah. Let's bring in some people who could tell us more about tea.
That sounds good. All right. Let's start off with our good friend Joseph Bruce.
Yeah, let's get Joseph in. All right, well, we are here this afternoon with Joseph Bruce. Joseph, I'm not going to tip the cards yet because, I think this whole bit is going to be very fascinating. It's been fascinating for me, who did not know really much about this subject at all. So just tell us first a little bit about yourself and your relationship with the museum.
Sure. I'll start with my formal relationship with the museum. I'm in my second term as a member of the Board of Trustees. I am also serving on the collection committee. And in my first term, I served as treasurer of the board and served on the executive committee. So that's the official relationship. But the personal relationship is I absolutely love this museum.
Right?
I happen to live in a condo across the street, and I'm here all the time. When I moved back to South Carolina and to Columbia, so many of my friends I met through the museum. So it's part of my social life. It's part of my intellectual life. I love this museum.
Yeah. No, it's cool. And our audience can't see it, but the moment you said that, like your whole face lit up. I mean, so the love is genuine. We can feel it. We're going to talk about something very specific, though, today in your relationship with the museum, having to do with the collection here. But before we do that, I want to have some fun. So I'd like to talk a little bit about tea. What's your favorite tea?
I'm hard-pressed to say I have a favorite tea. I do vary tea, and let me be clear on this. This is loose tea, not tea bags.
Right.
In the summer, always black tea, a lighter tea, a Darjeeling. In the winter, a more smoky, robust tea like Lapsang Souchong. And I'm a bit of a snob about tea. All of my tea either comes from Fortnum & Mason in London or Mariage Frères in Paris. I have tea almost every afternoon. I sit down and have tea and read and listen to music. Not a full afternoon tea, which would be lots of tea sandwiches and scones and clotted cream and jam and then sweets. Usually it's one kind of tea sandwich and one very small sweet.
Right. I hear you.
But pretty much every afternoon. I love the ritual of it.
Yeah. So you're not going to find any Lipton at your house. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
I'm an unapologetic snob about tea.
Hey, I think it's fantastic. I never, my only experience with tea has always been black tea, Irish tea, berries usually. But then I remember at one point, I don't know, in grad school or somebody had gifted me some Earl Grey. And I got to say, it tasted like I drank tea that someone sprayed cologne in. It was not my favorite at all. But that's just because I was told I didn't fix it right. And you talked about sort of the ritual of it. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, just the sort of the making of tea.
Yeah.
Well, I used to do it the really old-fashioned way, where you warm the pot, then pour hot water in, and you have to strain it. But actually now there is a tea kettle, which you can absolutely adjust by the kind of tea you're having.
Oh, wow.
And the temperature, and it has a basket that you put the loose tea in, and at the right moment, it descends into the water. And then, depending on how strong you want it brewed, it comes back up. And I have to say, it has changed my life. And that is one shortcut I absolutely make. And then you just pour it into a warm pot, and you don't have to worry about tea leaves or anyway. So,
are you much of a coffee drinker?
I don't drink coffee at all.
None at all. Just tea.
Just tea.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, I think if that's all you drink, then you're totally entitled to be a tea snob. But obviously, you didn't gift the museum tea. So for the 75th anniversary, you gifted the museum a collection of Georgian porcelain that, I'll be quite honest with you, Joseph, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but when I first heard that this was it, I didn't know what to expect. When I came up and saw it, though, and saw the collection all there, even though it's maybe not my cup of tea, can I say that? So I was terrible. I know. I'm going to get kicked off the show for that. I really loved how the museum put it together. And so the display of it and to see it there is, for a complete novice, it was impressive to see that with the wallpaper. But I know there's so much more behind what is in that collection than I could possibly even know. So could you talk a little bit about it? Just the best you could, I guess. I mean, I know we could probably be here for 3 hours for you to talk about it because I'm sure it's probably very exciting. But how did these come to be as a collection, and just what stands out to you the most about what you see there in that space?
Okay. I didn't set out to be a collector. This all started when I lived in New York City, and I wandered into an antique shop in the Village, actually on Greenwich Avenue, and spotted 2 sets of cups and saucers, which I thought were really lovely. And I asked the owner, a man named James Ray, Mr. Ray, tell me about these. And he said, well, they're actually made by English maker Newhall, N-E-W, first word, H-A-L-L, second word. It was pattern 434, and it was dated 1795, 1800. Soon as he said that, I thought, it's the Georgian period, which is my absolute favorite period of Georgian history. I mean, just an incredible period of change, and it sort of shaped so much of, believe it or not, what we would think of as modern life.
Right.
So I immediately had to buy them. And I bought it to use, and I did use it. And then I got more and more interested to learn more about this maker. And that's when it got really interesting and where the seeds of becoming a collector were first sown. The English had porcelain for a long, long time, but it was all Chinese export porcelain. I mean, the Chinese had known how to make porcelain for 4 centuries.
Right.
In Europe as well as in the UK, they could never figure out how to make porcelain. They just couldn't figure it out. They figured out how to make what we would call soft paste or earthenware.
Gotcha.
But it fires at a very low temperature. It could never be very thin. It wasn't very translucent. It didn't take decoration well. And it was not at all like Chinese export. But 5 men in England decided that they were going to figure out how to really make porcelain. And it was a business proposition. And that's what fascinated me ultimately about this. They were the first to make true porcelain in England, but they did it as a business they meant to be successful from a business point of view. And they realized the time was right because international trade was expanding unbelievably. It was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and you had a whole class of merchants and professionals who were making money hand over fist. And they had aspirations also to the gentry, to the aristocracy. And so Newhall, these 5 founders thought, there's a business opportunity here. Here is a class of people that are aspiring above their station and they've got money to spend. And we're going to meet that demand. And that's exactly what they did. And they created the first formula, which is kaolin. They called it China clay, feldspar, and quartz in the right proportions that fired at a very high temperature. It took decoration well. It had a slightly grayish look to it, grayish-blue look, which very much mimicked Chinese export, which wasn't pure white. So they were off and running.
But then you became off and running because you bought these 2 cups, fell in love with the history, started. So what was the next piece?
Gosh, I'm not even sure now I can tell you what they started coming sort of fast and furious there for a while. Newhall is not that easy to find in the United States. There was some exported here, but this wasn't the major market early on for English porcelain. So I ended up making contact with a couple of dealers in England who really started helping me find different patterns. And then where it really took off was, and this, I date myself, but the internet.
Yeah.
Because suddenly I could make contact with other collectors, see what museums actually had that I wasn't necessarily going to go visit. And that's when my collecting really took off and when it became very strategic. Most collectors and most museums are what I would call specimen collectors. The idea is as many patterns as possible. Over its 50-year history, there were about 3,500 patterns.
Wow. Okay.
Some were just variations on a theme, but they still had a distinct pattern number. And usually museums, the Victoria and Albert in London being a perfect example, their goal is to have at least one piece of as many patterns as possible.
Okay.
My strategy was to certainly, over the 50-year history, to represent the aesthetic development. But what I was more interested also in doing is collecting multiple pieces in a pattern to show how this was actually used. So it's a teapot, a creamer, a sugar bowl, cups and saucers, and a slop bowl where loose tea leaves were dumped in.
Right.
Because I really wanted partly to represent, this is the way people used it. People were using this. And,
Yeah.
The English drink tea. If somebody's gotten engaged, you drink tea. If somebody just died, you drink tea. Tea is the solution to everything.
3:00 in the afternoon, you drink tea.
So that was my strategy, and that drove what I looked for. And out of it, the collections are almost just shy of 200 pieces, and it's 58 patterns. Out of those 58 patterns, there are 12 where you and I, we can't now because the museum wouldn't let us, but we could sit down and have tea together.
Gotcha.
Because we would both have a cup and saucer, we would have the slop bowl, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that was my strategy, which is what makes this collection, I can't say unique, because that would say I'm absolutely sure there's no other like it, but it's highly unlikely that there is another collection based on this particular strategy.
Right. Okay. So I won't put you on the spot and ask you, is there a particular pattern that you are a fan of? Because I understand that there might be a particular pattern you're not a fan of.
Exactly.
And so I was just curious, like which one is it and why?
Yes, there is one. I couldn't pick a favorite.
Yeah.
If my life depended on it, I couldn't pick a favorite. But I can tell you my least favorite. And this one, I can remember the number. It's very late. It's pattern 3545. So we're in 1825, 1830, near the end of Newhall's 50-year history. And the reason it's my least favorite is because by this point, we're very close to the Victorian period, which is aesthetically my least favorite period.
Okay.
And it's very sweet and very cloyingly sweet. It's starting to feel Victorian. I wanted it only because I wanted to show the full range of the aesthetic development of Newhall to the very end, as it responded to changing tastes as Victoria was, in the offing, and sort of aesthetics and tastes really did change a lot. So my least favorite, but it's important that it's in the collection.
No, I love it. No, I absolutely love it. So I mean, a collection of Newhall porcelain this comprehensive is pretty rare outside of the UK. Why do you think it is important to share these objects here with visitors in Columbia, South Carolina?
Couple of that. Well, my emotional answer to that is because I love this museum and I wanted to have them. The practical part of it, I had talked, other museums were interested. The Victoria and Albert was interested because collectors and dealers all know each other. So everybody knows who's buying what. Mm-hmm. But a good reason other than my emotional connection to this museum that it's here is our senior curator, Michael Neumeister, who is just a brilliant curator.
Yes.
Who came to me and first asked if I would loan for the reinstallation of our permanent collection. And at that point, I said, no, it's time. Somebody else needs to care for this, not me. It's time for me to let it go. So the real two reasons. Number one is here, it will stay intact as a collection. Whereas had it gone to the V&A in London or to the Met in New York, it would have just been subsumed into their larger collection of British porcelain.
Right.
But here it stays intact. Second is Michael proposed a Georgian gallery to exhibit at least a small part, about 40 pieces of the 200 pieces, which it's hard to say no to. Last reason is I suppose this is sort of one of those fish and pond things. Decorative arts is maybe, some would say, a small pond within the museum world, and certainly porcelain is an even smaller pond. But within that pond, this is a big fish. Mm-hmm. And it kind of puts us on the map as a museum And we see this, the Art News, which is the Bible of curators all over the world. And every morning they get, the top stories from Art News, and our collection got featured in it. And Michael just got an email a couple of weeks ago from the chief curator of decorative arts from the Museums of Scotland in Edinburgh, very interested that we now have this collection of Newhall. They had just gotten a few pieces of Newhall and wanted to learn more about our collection. So it's already done what I really hoped it would do, which
That's
is
so cool.
to make the museum world know, hey, look what's going on at this museum in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah. I mean, that is absolutely awesome. I'm also fascinated, too, of the story behind these pieces and the story of Newhall porcelain. So I think having that and allowing that story or stories to be told within this larger framework of so many stories that this museum gets to tell. I mean, it's really cool, Joseph. I'm so glad that you went into that shop. And, even though that was not your purpose, was to be a collector one day, but that's the way life takes us, right? And grateful that you chose the Columbia Museum of Art as a place to for lack of a better word, to take care of your baby, for all these years. And so this is a sidebar, but I was kind of curious. So there's 40 pieces on display. And you said it's 200?
Just shy of 200.
Just shy of 200.
Like 198, I think the final number was.
So before they came here, were these all like displayed in your house?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, they were not.
What happened there?
When I moved here, because I was moving into a condo, so I was downsizing, and I actually had basically a closet designed specifically to hold all of this.
Wow.
When I would acquire a new piece, I wouldn't even open it.
Right.
Because every piece had become strategic.
Yeah.
There was a reason every piece was there. And I mean, if I broke something, the chances of being able to replace it.
Yeah.
Because, I've talked about enough to have tea. It could be in putting together enough to have tea. It may have taken me 8 or 9 years to finally find those individual pieces in that pattern to complete the set. So to break something would have been catastrophic in my mind. So it was all just stored away. And I only opened it when I acquired another piece to very carefully put it in.
Right.
So quite frankly, I'm so glad it's somebody else's responsibility now. It's not my problem to worry about anymore.
And they're taking such good care of it, I mean, and I guess in another way, you can actually come in and see it anytime you want now. So
yeah, I mean, it's wonderful that I get to share it. I mean, I've taken friends through, I've done, I guess, 2 group tours, and the museum has another one scheduled for me to do. So I love being able to share it.
And it's so obvious, the pride that you have about it. And I think that, as I admitted early on when we were talking, I didn't know much about it. I really wasn't something that would have piqued my interest necessarily. But then when I see it, and then B, hear you talk about it, I'm suddenly interested in it, and that's what I love about the collections in this museum. There are things here that, if you were walking by and just seeing a passerby on the street and wanted to talk to them about any one of these things, they might not be like, oh, that's really wild. But you bring them in, you show it to them, you tell them the story of the piece itself, or the story of how this piece came into one's possession, the collection, the care, conservation. And this is a history of things that were, as you said, I mean, these were used. The survival rate of a lot of this is not very high. And so people probably have seen pieces of it, or, but these are beautiful whole specimens that you can really see the aesthetic of something that people used every day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's one particular teapot in the first case, which is when Newhall was sort of copying Chinese export, because they began very conservatively, saying, we're going to make stuff that's like what people are used to. And it's a polychrome piece, and it's an imagined Asian scene with a little boy in a window looking out. But what I love is if you look at the handle, it's so stained.
Mm.
And you just think over 200 years, how many hands held that and poured it?
Yeah.
There's another piece that's monogrammed.
Mm.
And I look at that and I think, it was probably she. Who was, I think it's ELC. No, I can't remember the monogram, but we'll make it ABC for because I can't remember but I look at it and I think, who was she?
Right.
That, didn't just go buy this in a shop in London, but she commissioned that one of the spaces, they take the fruit off of it and put her monogram on it. And who was she?
Yeah, right. That's so cool. Well, I think it's only fitting. We need to have you back, and I think we need to invite all of Columbia in for some tea. And I think because that would be the next sort of fascinating piece of this puzzle is to receive some education on tea. I'm woefully ignorant about it, and I feel like I might be missing out on something. So Joseph, we got to bring you back in here and educate us on teas, because I think if I listen to you talk about it, I'm going to want to do it. You have a very infectious enthusiasm over things that as a poet who writes about the everyday, and a collector of things that at one point would have been considered just every day, and yet now has such a special place where we can all come and enjoy. It's just cool, man.
I'll give you one teaser for that follow-up.
All right, I like it. Teasers.
One complete misunderstanding about tea. Everybody thinks, let's have high tea. And it sounds very, very fancy.
Yeah.
In fact, high tea was exactly the opposite. High tea was basically a peasant's meal that would have been basically their supper. It would have been below stairs.
Okay.
And it was a hearty meal called high tea because you would have sat at a table.
Okay.
Afternoon tea was never at a table. You'd be sitting in chairs and a cup would be passed to you. So, when people think they're being fancy and going to have afternoon tea but think it's high tea, they have it completely backwards.
I hear you. Well, let's get together and have some afternoon tea, shall we?
Bingo.
Nice. Joseph Bruce is a member of the museum's Board of Trustees and has donated his collection of Newhall porcelain to the Columbia Museum of Art. You can see some of this collection in the Georgian period room on view at the CMA's collection galleries. Up next,
the traditional movement patterns that you would make for it, whether you first cleanse the pot with warm water, then it heats the pot, then you add the water back in, or whether you let it steep, whether it's ground or fresh leaves, however you do it, you're creating your own version of history every time you do it.
Angela Yong spills the tea after this.
Hey y'all, producer Drew here. As you've probably heard, Midlands Gives is returning on May 5th, 2026. And here at the Columbia Museum of Art, we would love your support. Midlands Gives is an online philanthropic event that raises money and awareness in support of nonprofits in the Midlands. Proceeds raised by the CMA during this event will help ensure the programs, exhibitions, and experiences you love continue to grow and thrive. Donations made between 10 and 11 a.m. will also help support us even more, while we try to qualify for our matching grant during the Aflac Power Hour. Supporting the CMA means supporting initiatives like Free Summers and exhibitions like Rodney McMillan, A Son of the Soil. If you're too excited to wait until May 5th, you can pledge a donation right now during early giving. Just find the link in today's show notes to visit our organization page and pledge your gift. Thank you so much for your continued support to the Columbia Museum of Art. And now, back to the show.
Hi guys, I'm Angela Yong. I am the co-founder of Tour Tea SC. I co-founded this with my 2 daughters, and our goal is to spill the tea on all things Asian.
Angela, it is so great to have you here in the podcast studio with us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. Good. So, of course, this episode is a lot about tea. What's your favorite tea?
Oh, well, that's an easy one because I just got back from Marrakesh and I had true Moroccan tea, which is a green tea and a mint tea combined. And I got to experience that every day. And so I brought some home, and that is my new favorite tea for a little while.
So Moroccan tea, is there like a particular time of day that it's good? Afternoon, evening, morning?
Without any actual cultural knowledge, but my personal experience for being there for 6 days, they drank it morning, noon, and night. And we would be at dinner at 11 o'clock at night, and they would be passing out Moroccan tea.
Okay. Anything special in the preparation or?
One thing I noticed that every time they would pour our tea, they would start low towards the tip of the cup, the little lip, and then they would just pull up high. And so you see this long stream and the sound. And we asked a couple of the people, and they all made the same joke that we're just doing it to show off. But they aren't. There's no real reason for that. I was thinking, they must be aerating it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so you can see the color. Nope. They just said we're doing it to show off. And then they'd all wink at us. They had the best personalities.
So as one who, I don't know a lot about different teas and stuff like that. And I've only had really Irish tea. And so I know how I take my tea. All right. Now, is this a tea that you can do things? Do you just drink it as is? Can you add sugar, a little bit of cream or milk?
Yes. So you can add, typically like it's a rock sugar, but typically you drink it as is. Yeah. And I actually don't have a lot of knowledge about tea, and nor did I when I started this. I had a client for years. She was homebound, and she drank tea every day. And she would always order me the same tea she ordered herself, which was just super generous. But I got to taste some of the most luxurious teas, all the way down to like going to Spotted Salamander and having Lipton tea. You get to a range of it. And I started thinking about my own culture and how we have tea and how Chinese people have tea. And then through that, Tour of Tea came. It just became this natural thing where I'm constantly being exposed to it. And then realizing it's very different than English tea. We don't necessarily add milk to it. Not all of them. Some of them do have milk, but not like the way that they serve it with the high tea hats and everything.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say too, I have had, green tea and things like that, but I would usually have honey or something with that and not mix the other stuff because that's gross. But I've always felt like coffee was utilitarian, right? Like, I don't drink coffee to relax. I drink coffee because I want to wake up. I need to get going. But tea, it's either a social thing or a thing to relax with. But that is something I've always thought was pretty unique about tea and our unique relationship with it here in this country, which is basically a relationship from all other cultures and all other countries that have come here and brought it.
That's right.
So I'm glad that you brought up about heritage because, of course, May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and you have this event. And so with Tour Tea being a celebration really of diverse cultures and all these histories sort of grouped together under one umbrella, it kind of makes sense, I suppose, to have tea as the centerpiece for that event.
It really was. I think what I walked away from my client who introduced me to it was that tea is an opportunity to linger. It's an opportunity to linger with yourself and this cup, and you can have conversations and you can come back to thoughts that you tuck away for a little bit. And then when you're with your friends and you're having tea, every culture is able to preserve hot tea because each pot is different. Each pot is significant. How it is poured, there's such beautiful customs to each one. Whether you practice them or not, that's just your stage in the game. And no one comes out and goes, I had tea, now my pinky's up and I know what I'm doing. It's a true evolution. It's a true opportunity to, for me, connect back with my Korean culture. And I remember drinking hot water a lot. And we don't drink a whole lot of hot water throughout the day in America, but I did a lot in Korea. So for me, the tea and the lingering, I think the lingering among friends and sitting over tea without this need for conversation, because you can just sit with it and eat your biscuit and just be still. And I think that is one of the reasons why it calms your nerves. The traditional movement patterns that you would make for it, whether you first cleanse the pot with warm water, then it heats the pot, then you add the water back in, or whether you let it steep, whether it's ground or fresh leaves, however you do it, you're creating your own version of history every time you do it. So I like the whole lingering process of tea.
I love that. That is so cool.
And you did a very good job lingering. Let me say all that.
Well, I am a lingerer.
We need more of them. I think our whole culture is too hurried.
It very much is. I think that's what I love so much about what you said is that, tea gives us that opportunity to just stop for a minute. And I think you're right. I think this country needs more of that moment of stop, contemplate, think, and then just enjoy, right?
Being in a Muslim country, there were call to prayers. And then when I was in Spain, and I was just there last week, that's why this is also familiar, but I would hear church bells. And for me, being away from my culture, all of a sudden, I would literally pause, hear it, know what it's meant to be, and then I would pause and give thanks in that moment every time. And I realized we don't have call to prayer, and it doesn't have to be a religion.
Right,
There's just not of course they say you should pray before you eat, but many people don't. They open mouth chew and barely digest their food. Or they say pray before bed, but then now we scroll on our phone before bed. So where are the outside influences for us to pause and be with whatever it is that's bigger than us? And for me, I find that in those cultures, that's very real and important to them. Pause this nonsense for a minute and just check in with yourself and rest. And I feel like every time I have tea now, here, when I came back, I realized I'm doing that. I'm creating that for myself. And I think if you think about British people, what they say, like afternoon tea. And then in India, they would have, I don't want to say this because I don't know for sure, but from what I've been told from my Indian friends, they would have chai later in the day. So even then, they're being called to drink it. We're being called to drink coffee in the morning because the marketing told us to, the jolt of caffeine wakes us up, the whatever sugar. And then the marketing also said, take it to go because you don't even have time to drink this.
That's right.
The cups that we're drinking out of it leach plastic into us. We're paying $7 for that coffee now. It's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, so I'm going to stick with my tea.
You heard it here, folks. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's why when you look at other cultures and other countries, why people live longer than they do in America.
They do. And they're not at the mental health crisis that we are.
It's true. So, look, and shifting gears just a touch, but thinking of programs, I do want to talk a little bit about Tour of Tea. I'd love to know more about the history of the program. How many years have we been holding this event?
This is going to be our third Tour of Tea. The first Tour of Tea, I just decided on a whim that I was going to represent 6 countries and get some volunteers, and we were going to just give away tea and the companion snack of something that whatever country had when they were a child. Because whoever is passing that snack out, I want them to say, I ate this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Try it. And the first year, I mean, it was mind-blowing. We had probably close to 100 people. And it was so good. It was so well received. My heart was just imploding because I wasn't planning to do this. It just came naturally and I just rolled with it. I just kept hearing it and I did it. But then the second year, I got together with this wonderful man named Wilson that you guys know. And
Wilson.
You guys, he is a gem. So we got together.
Just one word.
And we had over 350 people come last year to that huge event.
350 people.
We tripled the number of attendees. We had vendors. We had performers. And one of my really good friends came up to me during the event, someone that I just kind of treasure their mind. And he said to me, this feels so sincere. And it's one of the few events I've been to that didn't feel exploitative. And I mean, I just wanted to cry then. I want to cry now.
Don't cry.
People were truly dancing from their heart. You can hear them singing and the conversations everywhere. I just couldn't believe the true melting pot of people that were here because there was so many different ages and races and men and women. It really felt good. And I'm so excited for this year too.
Yeah, me too. You know, and you all heard it. If you want to see something triple, just get Wilson involved. Who we love Wilson. We adore him. But that's really cool. Now, so it's a nonprofit.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with that when you don't have the event?
So this is a passion project. So I do work full time and I have a special dog. So with this event, what we do is we raise money. We spend the money back on everything because everything's free. We also, last year, I was able to get 2 articles published about Asian American businesses here in Columbia. Sometimes what we find is that Asian populations will self-segregate, and we have an international boulevard in Columbia. Every city has this kind of situation. They self-segregate just so that they can fly under the radar, they could do their work, they can care for each other. And sometimes they don't get seen. And I noticed that I got more recognition than some of my other Asian friends, but I think it's because I have a bigger voice and I don't mind being photographed and I get excited about everything. So, and I say yes a lot. So that helps. These folks should not be recognized because they're scared or nervous or have a language barrier. And so what I've tried to do over the last 4 years is go in and be the middle ground. So they'll talk to me. I'll get the media involved. We did a children's Asian book reading. So I had local artists read these books to children that were from their personal culture. I got 39 businesses to wear shirts that say very Asian. And that's not easy to do because they don't want to be photographed. People don't even want to know. They don't want themselves to be known as the business, know. But I got them to do it. And it's because we are a variation of something, and I'm proud to be very, very Asian for all the good ways. And I just found it to be a little more positive than Stop Asian Hate.
Yes.
That was my counter move to that.
Okay.
So when we're not doing a Tour of Tea event, which we're also hoping to expand to Greenville and Charleston, when we're not doing that, we do have a website, and I will say that the website's been very low on my efforts, and I'm so sorry. But I was really hoping the website would be this hub where it constantly posted every city in South Carolina's Asian-related events. And maybe now that we're getting into our 4th year, maybe I can get an intern or somebody that can help me, because I do think that once we get into a rhythm, I think that would be a really great thing.
Yeah, you need one. I mean, because that's a full-time thing. I mean, and not just in its creation, but maintaining it. And then hopefully as word gets out, there's even more things happening. And so then it just becomes bigger and bigger. And that is the plight, I think, that so many organizations will run into, right, at some point. And it's tough. But what I think you're doing, first of all, is so freaking cool. I mean, we are blessed in this city. We are blessed in this state to have so many great cultures that have been here for a long time. So long that they are the fabric, really, of the Southern culture, of the new South, if we want to put, weird monikers on it.
Yeah.
And it's such an important thing for us to know, because it used to be, unfortunately, a very monolithic kind of vision of what Southern culture was. And now it is such a broader, much more inclusive. And I think, unfortunately, one culture, because of some of the things that you just mentioned, gets overlooked sometimes, is the impact of Asian Americans here in the South. So in being able to come to an event like this, to be able to celebrate that, to celebrate one's own culture and heritage, to see how that works as part of a thread into this much larger fabric, I think is so important, really, for us coming together as a community, which is very much what we're all about in the Columbia Museum of Art and what we are very much about with this podcast. So, I mean, that you got me sold. I'm going to do everything I can to be there, just because, I think we need now more than ever opportunities to be able to come together and just celebrate, enjoy, take that moment to think and contemplate and to see that there so many folks out there like ourselves that are also looking for that same experience.
Yeah.
And you did it all with tea.
I did it with tea. I think I would like to mention that right before I came up with Tour of Tea, I started a little group here in town. I call us the Asian Invasion. And so I got together a group of Asian women, and we would meet at Asian restaurants, and then we would just go into it. And from our very first meeting, we realized, and we're very, very different. We realized whether we're full Korean or Korean American growing up here, we all have these hilarious mom stories that just really, truly rooted us. And it's such a big deal that one of the women in the group told me later, she said, I've never had an Asian friend. You know, it's embarrassing growing up and you're the only Asian person. And then like if one Asian person comes in the town, it can just become uncomfortable or worse. You know,
I didn't think about that, yeah.
When I was in college, I played volleyball, and I went to 4 different high schools, but we settled down in the mountains of West Virginia. And I avoided this woman because she was Korean. I avoided her like the plague. Every tournament, I wouldn't walk by her team. I wouldn't go near her because I knew they'd make fun of us and they'd be mean to us. And what I figured out later on was we got forced to play together. And then we became instant friends. We started playing doubles tournaments, and but they weren't all like that. And that felt good because, I mean, you're always going to have the ones that have weird things to say. But truly, that was what was so scary. And it wasn't scary because it was just a couple of dum-dums. Everybody else welcomed us. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody else was fun to be around. Everybody else loved us. And so if I had just focused on those two, I wouldn't have met a woman who's still my friend today.
Right.
So the first Asian Invasion group that I created that we're still having dinners now was so that I too could have aunties for my daughters that were Asian in South Carolina. If I died tomorrow, I want them to be able to call somebody who's going to make sure that she has rice and some seaweed soup on my death, you know, things like that. And it's worked. My
Nice.
girls are really close to some of these women. Some of these women, I don't know what I would do without them now.
That's so cool. And I love that story. I think that's something that we all should be reminded of, that, you know, it's real easy, and, you know, hate to keep harping on it, that, you know, we can feel rather insular, especially now, no matter where we're from, no matter what our heritage or our cultures are. And it's good to remind ourselves sometimes, getting out there, that we will see that there are more of us.
Yeah.
You know,
There's more of the good.
There's way more of the good. And so speaking of good, let's talk about the event itself, because I think, you know, there may be some folks that didn't come last year, and then let's see if we can't pick up some more business, so to speak.
Well, if they like good food,
okay,
and or if they have a sweet tooth, it doesn't have to be just teas. There'll be plenty of tea, obviously, because every station, every country represented. Last year, I think we had 11 countries represented.
Wow.
So you can have tea from Thailand, Taiwan, China, Korea, just everywhere. And outside of the tea, we have an accompanying snack. So you have salty stations, sweet stations, I mean, just layers of cake. But then we also have food trucks here that are Asian and Asian owned. We wanted to make sure all of that was super sincere. Yeah. So Janet, who has the gimbap station, she's usually in that food truck with her mom, her husband, you know, just her family's in there doing that. And they're wonderful. Their food is so good. And they'll be back again this year. But we have a few other vendors, and I apologize, I'm not mentioning them, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But we have tea vendors. So there'll be lots to learn. If you find a tea you like, we'll give you a bag take with you so you can have it when you get home. Okay.
And of course, people to assist too, right? If you're not sure how you know, about this tea or what's the best way to sort of fix it, whatever. There are plenty of people there will be able to help. Nobody's looking down at anybody.
Nobody's looking down.
You know, it's about...
Because we're all shorter.
That's right.
I'm just kidding. There's a couple of them out there.
Oh, man. But I mean, you know, that's a thing that I think folks should know, is that, you know, there's all this wonderful stuff here. You probably haven't encountered some of this, you know, and that's part of it, is like, we want you to try something new. And the people there are going to be super friendly and super helpful, and are going to help guide you to finding the thing that you like the most.
Absolutely. And the event, we extended it 1 extra hour this year. So it's from 4 to 7. And the other great part about it being from 4 to 7 is you can linger. You can try one tea and then try another tea. And then you could take a couple tea bags home to try later. But every table will have descriptions on how long to steep the tea, what's the optimal temperature of water, or any processes that might make it more unique to each culture. But Frances, who owns Gorilla Boost, is going to be doing a matcha presentation. So she's going to teach you how to have traditional Japanese matcha tea and how to take some of the kind of bitterness out of it, because it can be really intense, and how to cut it and then how to process it so that you can have this beautiful drink in lots of layers of sweetness and milks and foams and all the ways that she does it so creatively. And we have wonderful volunteers, and we're always recruiting more volunteers. So if you want to volunteer, we'd love to have you. But the volunteers are literally asked to make eye contact and ask this person questions and listen and then share that experience. And what we have found, and I've only been doing it for 3 years, so I don't know what I'll find 10 years from now, but what I find right now is sincere conversations happen. People cry, people laugh, people bring their children, people bring their grandparents, and they don't just hang out with each other, they hang out with total strangers, and you can just see them all laughing and talking. And that is something that I think is truly healing.
Yeah.
Individually, but also collectively. And that vibe is one of the best things about this museum, is they have this live energy that's constantly pulsing, and you can feel it when you start to get closer and closer.
Correct.
So we just want to be a part of that.
Yeah, amen. If folks are interested in volunteering or knowing more about it, they can just go to the website?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
There's email links, contact us links, and we'll get back in touch. We also have a Tour of Tea Instagram, which is probably the easiest one because we're very active on the Instagram account.
Okay. And, of course, the website, what we're talking about is touroftea.org. It's not hard to find if you go to find the website, anywhere you go to find websites. Sorry, as podcasters, man, that's, anywhere you podcast, find your podcast, find your Google, find whatever. All right, so I've admitted already that my experience with tea is pretty limited, like just plainly black tea, Irish tea. It's pretty much Barry's, and that's it. So you've met me for a whole whopping 30, 45 minutes. Any suggestions as to a different type of tea I could try?
I don't know you that well in 30 minutes, but one of my favorite teas is just this simple barley tea, and you can have it cold or warm, and it's
like
just
barley.
nutty. It's very light, but it's grounding.
I could use that.
It's
It's just called barley tea?
good barley tea, and you're sitting in this brown chair, and you kind of look like a cute little barley sprout. Like this can work.
She's talking about my hair, ladies and gentlemen. I like that though, barley tea. Who would have thought it? Okay, cool.
I'll make sure to drop some off tomorrow.
All right, I love it. I love it. Well, Angela, this has been great. I think, first of all, really looking forward to this event. I shamefully wasn't aware of it until we started talking about, Drew and I were talking about doing this episode. And to be honest with you, didn't realize how much of an impact tea still has, beyond just, sort of the stereotypes, right, of what you would expect of the tea drinkers. But, you bring to this such a wonderful humanizing interplay that we can come and linger.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely love that. And I can't wait. I hope there's 500 people at this thing.
Me too.
And it just continues to grow. And especially as you think about other cities like Charleston and Greenville, because you may have stumbled on something here really, really special. And I think, on behalf of everybody who needs it, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Angela Yong is the co-founder of the nonprofit Tour for Tea SC. You can find out more information on their website, touroftea.org. And don't miss the Tour of Tea event happening right here at the CMA on May 14th. I will admit, when we were sitting down to do this episode or talking about doing this episode, I really went with Drew's gut on this, who said, hey, I think this would be a really interesting episode. I never really thought much about tea, to be honest with you. But after talking, with Joseph and talking with Angela, and the more I'm seeing their passion talking about tea, you realize it's not just about tea. It's about taking that moment. It's about who you share that moment with. It's about finding a space when everything around you seems to be going and going and going and going, and just to stop and appreciate very simple and very delicate things. To tell you the truth, y'all, I think I have to think differently now about tea. I know I will think differently about tea. Not to the point where I think, it will consume me, but definitely to the point where I'm not just putting a hot beverage down my throat and moving on. I'm thinking more now about my relationship with the world around me, and if a cup of tea helps me to understand that a little better or to take that moment, I'm all for it. It'll be the safest and most legal thing I could have done. So this episode was really eye-opening for me. I don't know if y'all could tell by my own enthusiasm and excitement throughout this thing, but that was genuine. I really found the concepts and the topics that we talked about fascinating, and all over that in a cup of tea. That's pretty cool. You've been listening to Binder, a production of the Columbia Museum of Art. Hosted by me, Ray McManus. Production and editing by Drew Barron. Special assistance from Joel Ryan Cook. You can find a full transcript of today's episode in our show notes. If you like what you heard today, be sure to share this episode with others or write us a review on Apple Podcasts. For more information about Binder or CMA exhibitions and programs, visit our website, columbiamuseum.org.